Hello, my name is Charles Stewart, and this is right around October 1st. I'm trying to here summarize a document that I've written about how to start a common law township, constitutional common law township. This is the only constitutional common law way to do this. Because common law reaches way back. But I'm basically reading from some notes of a one-page document that is available on the internet at links provided below this video. And so, without further ado, I'd like to talk about townships here a little bit. And for my notes, generally, a constitutionally cat out. A constitutionally lawful township is a fully sovereign and independent community which is based upon the ancient constitutional common law and biblical concepts of the social compact and the covenant and the confederation. Any individual has a constitutionally lawful authority to start his or her own township, has the constitutionally lawful authority to start his or her own township. All that is needed is to locate other like-minded individuals and to have a clear concept of what are the basic requirements of law. Proof of this is available through the web links at the end of this document, and because this information has been pieced together from the very few ancient texts which have survived the many book burnings of the Romanists, there may be some errors in the text of this document here that's available, but they should be few and of minor significance. This is fairly solid research. It is solid. First, it is important to clearly comprehend that each common law jurisdiction is about consensus-based self-governing. This is very different from the majority rule model that is easily manipulatable by hostile forces. When you've got consensus-based governing, it's very much more difficult for hostile and subversive forces to come in and subvert your township community. This is vigilance. Vigilance is a good thing. It's related to the word vigilantes, which are a good thing too, but they've been slandered by the hostile forces that permeate our culture. But anyway, because each common law governmental jurisdiction is composed of only 12, 10, or less political subdivisions, it is fairly easy to achieve this consensus. And hereunder, the only governmental jurisdiction smaller than the township is the individual households. Okay? Further, each household's members are required to come to an agreement consensus about what are the rules and laws for their household and homestead, as well as who will be their head of household. That's another legal term, is the head of household term. Yeah. That head of household is the spokesperson for that household. This is true under natural law, common law, and Christian law because, quote, every kingdom divided against itself is destroyed, and every city or household divided against itself will not stand. This is a theme from the Bible in Matthew 12:25 and Mark 3:25. Yeah, it's biblically based. Consensus is a biblical requirement. But further hereunder, each head of household needs to be the representative of all the individual's voices in his or her household. The critical importance of this consensus-building process and the election of representative spokespersons, starting at the smallest household level to go to the larger jurisdiction, becomes much more clear as readers or viewers of this video start to move up to examine the higher levels of common law and Christian government. Hereunder, once an individual has a consensus formed around who will be his or her head of household, then the next step is for that head of household to become certified as a qualified elector in his or her precinct or township. This is done quite simply by finding two other heads of household, so that all three of these household heads can simultaneously certify each other as being, quote, qualified electors. That's a very important concept recognizable in both statutory and constitutional law, that term, qualified electors. It is important to note here that these few qualified electors do not need any permission or license from any outside authority in order to certify the legitimate status of any of them as qualified electors in their township and precinct jurisdictions. This is entirely handled within your local community, or as I'm going into, it doesn't need to be local either, but your smaller community. But here that the ancient texts do not seem to indicate any degree of numerical flexibility, so a full 10 qualified electors are best for establishing a legitimate township jurisdiction. That's what you basically need to establish a township jurisdiction, is 10 qualified electors as representatives of their individual households. And this is all based upon Exodus 18, chapter 18, verses 17 through 26, and the biblical book also of Deuteronomy 1, 9 through 17, and that's Torah law, by the way. Also, it's based upon Black's Law Dictionary definitions of the words decantus, deaconess, hundred, tithing, tithing man, and township. And the word deacon, like a preacher, a deacon, that's a 10-based word. Tithing is 10 based words. Township, all of those words are in Black's Law Dictionary, and you can look them up for yourself. Right here, Black's Law Dictionary. It's right in there. Look at it. If a township has less than 10 members, then this author suggests that the township's constable refrain from making arrests, and for the township's members to restrain their activities to purely defensive and self-sufficient activities. You really need to have 10 members of your township to have it solid. If you're going to be debating with people about whether or not your township is legitimate or not, it really is best to have 10 solid members. But if you don't have them, don't stop doing your basic stuff of communicating with each other. You can carry on basic things, but just try not to arrest anybody unless absolutely necessary. Paragraph 2. A legitimate township is usually thought of as being local to a specific geographical area. However, township jurisdictions can also be what is called quote marks, special, quote marks. That's right in your Constitution and statutory documents, that word special. And these can be also considered private or corporate, like trusts. So they don't have to be local, and they can be organized for a specific religious community, or for fraternal organizations, or for political activists, court justice activists, computer users, alternative currency users, or any of a large number of other, quote, special interests. These special private township communities have a lot of potential, and some may find that working with these sorts of communities are more productive than organizing locally. Paragraph 3. After consensus has been achieved among all qualified electors in the township's community that their township has been lawfully established, then their most important following step is to elect their own leader and representative, who is also known as the township's constable or peace officer. Again, as with the household's election, the election of the township's leader needs to be based upon this repeating concept of consensus. Hereunder, every qualified elector has a veto power and immediate recall power over who will be their town constable. As at the household level, any qualified elector who unreasonably vetoes the election of a responsible township leader to the position of town constable, and all of that to the point where no consensus can be achieved in the community, then that dissenting individual's status as a qualified elector may be brought into question and re-examined by the remaining qualified electors of that township. Because this is a very small community of only about 10 members, this consensus-based process should be easy to follow. If, upon formal motion, said dissenting head of household is found to be an unreasonable individual, then by the unanimous agreement of the remaining township members, his or her status as a qualified elector in the township community may lawfully be revoked. Remember, a house divided cannot stand. This is the only pathway which applicable law allows. It's an organic process. When there's an obstruction, somebody seriously messing with your township that's a township member, and they're not a reasonable person, it's suddenly discovered, then you can kick them out. The remaining members can kick him out. They can tell him to go off and form his own township. They don't have to put up with that kind of trash. And because it's a small community of just about 10 individuals, 10 jurisdictions, 10 household representatives, this should be able to be done. It's not that complicated. So, through the consensus of the qualified electors of the township's constable peace officer, through the consensus of the qualified electors, the township's constable peace officer should have deputy constables clearly designated and chosen also. And this is true so that in case the township's main constable becomes incapacitated, the first deputy constable can quickly and efficiently, the deputy, can quickly and efficiently step into the position of the spokesperson and representative for the township. There's no break in the continuity of the representation of the township's interests in the larger jurisdictions. By this process, hostile forces will know that the township will not become incapable of defending themselves, and such deputy constables should regularly attend the higher precinct level community meetings so that they can quickly and efficiently step into their township seat in the governing body, the 10-seat governing body of their precinct jurisdiction, their larger precinct jurisdiction. Okay, that's the end of paragraph 3, and I've got a little bit more to do, but this is about at close to the 15-minute mark of the YouTube limits, so I'm going to stop here, and I'll complete this, the rest of paragraph 4 and everything in a separate YouTube video. Yeah, see my blackberries in the background there? Yeah. Okay.